3, 2, 2.5, 2.25.
We got the warning.
Two.
It's being sent to a third party.
Yes, the KGB is connected. So all right, we're live on YouTube. I just shut off all non-video participants so you don't see them up on the screen there. And we'll just anybody else that will be joining us, we will let them join. So we're here to talk smack. We are here to talk smack. And actually, I literally was thinking about, when we put some marketing out for this, it's just MSP smack talk, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so funny. There's a little delay with YouTube, and all of a sudden, I just saw you run back to get your water bottles a second time, and I'm like, "What the hell?"
Hey.
So, for anybody that doesn't know Steve, Steve is a veteran, a relic, a dinosaur. I remember calling Len DiCostanzo. Somebody said, "You know what? We're like in a boardroom at Exchange, and someone said, you know what? What's the best way to describe Len?" And I'm like, a relic. And I meant that as like a positive thing, like he's been around a long time. And he's like, "You rat bastard." I mean, you can hear Len saying that, right? You know, in his New York Italian voice with the look, and
Oh
I
yeah.
got a little scared, but like Steve, you and I have talked about, we much like people on this call, have been in IT longer than we care to admit. Some of us have more hair than others. You're still sporting the hair. I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot grayer though. It's a
true.
lot
True.
grayer.
Yeah. And I want you to just give a quick overview, just a good 30-second overview of what you're doing right now today, but then also just talk a little bit about your history of where you've come from.
Sure. Sure. So I'm a vendor, which is the bad word. We do a 5G box, and that's the only plug I'm going to do. Because I'm literally turned away because I'm at ASCII, making sure that I don't do this because I really want to have a real talk about MSPs. We're also opening an MSP in Phoenix/Orange County. So we're doing that at the same time. So we're mid-birth of an MSP. Prior to that, worked at a couple other different firms. That's private equity, different pieces like that. But I've been I was in-house IT, spam soap. I built up my own uh, MSP called Manage My IT back in the day because I'm really good on SEO. And I figure if it just spells you out what you're going to do, it just gives you good results.
Yeah.
And then sold that, and that domain is still available if anybody needs to purchase it. So is spam soap, by the way.
You still have spam spoke,
uh,
really?
yeah, it's up for 10 grand. I was like, oh, cool. I might buy it just for fun, just to
Yeah.
cab it. No, we're gonna point it to rhythms. But I'm in mid piece, right? Like we came back a year ago. I came back a year ago. And then kind of jump back in and literally listening to partners and MSPs as they travel around the country. But now we're opening our own from an MSP perspective, just because it's fun. I want to do it again. I got the passion back, if you will.
Yeah.
And now I'm here to talk smack. I'm not going to talk about a vendor side of it. Don't
Did
want
you
to.
take a blow to the head or something
I
that
did,
caused that
Jay.
passion?
Yeah, Jay, you're the one who hit me.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
You
so
left out vodka distiller too.
I am. Yeah, I
oh,
do have. We do have a vodka company. Hold on, I will give that a shameless plug
yeah,
because
go for it.
it's right here. Neff Vodka. There we go. And I've got a
Yeah.
case of it to when we do shows. We like to give out free drinks. So there we
That's
go.
all.
Which a lot of fun.
So, first thing that that kind of jumped to mind question wise is you mentioned getting your passion back, and I can completely relate to that. I mean, when we've been doing this and we're in the grind of being an MSP for so long, I mean, it's easy to get burned out and we lose that passion. And I mean, still when you do find it, maybe there's different stages of, becoming a recovered MSP. I think, I think there's times where I look back and I think, man, I feel so much better than I have been, but I still don't feel like the Dan of when I first started my MSP. How do you find that passion again, man?
Um, well, I took that step back, that 10, 12-year step back. And then
Yeah.
coming back in, I think the biggest piece was like you can only and I've kind of always been an MSP for that 10 or 12 years, just more in a private group, right?
Right.
You can only take so many, hey, can you reset my password calls, right?
Mhm.
Because they still come at you. Like I had a
Right.
talk with Neft, and we're like, hey, I need to outsource this, and I get kind of called on the carpet of, well, wait, why are you still in the project? You're supposed to be doing this, this, and this. And I go, because the CFO still calls me when she can't open an Excel spreadsheet. And we
Yeah.
kind of laughed about it. And I'm like, he goes, well, how do we fix that? And I'm like, dude, that is the biggest problem everywhere with MSPs. So we're kind of joking about it. So now we're figuring out how we're going to do that. We're going to do these different pieces, but how do you get that passion back? Honestly, it was peer groups. You, Dan, was one of it. I'm going to say Jay, and that really sucks to say because Jay's passion and joking, right? Like
Right.
it's that peer group piece that I think, I mean, it's not in any other industry. It is very unique. And I've tried to explain this 100 times to people. It is a very unique piece. Dentists don't get together and hang out and talk about their business.
Right.
But I don't get to talk to vodka distillers. We don't talk about it. We're competing and we're going straight at each other, right?
Yeah.
Um, from an MSP perspective, I remember going up against Rex Frank left and right when I was at in-house IT, and knowing that even if Rex won, right, they were going to be okay. And he would say the same about me, which is a unique perspective because we were competing in Orange County like two bulls going at each other. If anybody knows Rex, we were
Yeah.
like this at every single time. So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. So that, I guess that's where the passion came back. It was taking a step back and then remembering, I guess, hey, this was cool. Dan, you inspired it too. Like we did the vendor spotlight, and then we talked smack for like a good half hour afterwards, and it was
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and that, I mean, and that's the fun stuff. I mean, because what we do is isn't always what I don't think we truly understand the value of what we're providing to a company because, we might be resolving a server issue, we might be resolving a printer issue, but at the end of the day, they might be printing something. We might have resolved a printing issue, but they might be printing a $1 million proposal that could completely take their business to the next level. And that's what's important to them. It's not, hey, you fixed my printer. I was able to score a huge deal because I was able to get to my appointment on time, get this proposal to them. And, those are the things, the end result that really makes that huge difference, right?
It is. If everything's working right, you don't get any recognition.
Right. Yeah.
The biggest problem is they call you when there's a problem, right? But that
Right.
$1 million proposal, nobody, they don't, you know what? That super IT guy did some great stuff because that printer worked when I needed it to. What you do get blamed is when the printer doesn't work, right? And that's what they remember. They don't remember hey, everything worked great, right?
Right.
And that's the biggest problem with it. Sometimes, if you can do the right pieces, you can recognize that. And that was what started this conversation. You and I was like, I can't believe how many people are not singing their own praises. You have to go in and sing your praises. You know what? I'm the great American hero because everything works, not Canadian hero. Uh,
Right.
so as we were
Well,
joking earlier.
well, you're exactly right. We have to toot our own horns. And,
Mhm.
most of us, I mean, we've got extroverts, we got introverts, and then, I like to call myself that, introverted extrovert. You know,
Mhm.
I'm that combination of both. And, But I think a lot of us are, we don't just go out there and say, "Hey, guess what I did for you," right? We're not looking for praise and getting a pat on the back. But if we don't do that, then the customer doesn't know what took place. When you take a look at the decision makers, well, those are VIPs. We've got some extra attention given to them, and they just think everything's working all the time. And in reality, there are things that we're taking care of behind the scenes for other people that they just aren't aware of, and they may not be aware that we saved them from some major incident. And if we
Mhm.
don't tell them about it, they're going to be that traditional that mindset of why are we paying these guys? Man, I'm writing a check for $3,700 a month. What the hell is this going for? Could we cut this,
Oh yeah. Oh no, and you're the first one, right?
Right.
As an MSP, you're the first one. We got to cut IT costs. Well, why do we have to cut IT costs? So, I think, and that's what kind of started this piece. The biggest, hugest issue I think that we're missing, because the joke that you and I had, Dan, was when I left, I said nobody's going to be managing an Exchange server in the next 6 years, and I'm
Yeah.
glad I was wrong, right? And then,
Right.
but the same piece is nobody's going to be managing file servers. All the ERP and accounting systems are in the cloud, right? So you're not really at this point where that server level piece is there. And it's another shift. We had that break fix model. Then we shifted to the cloud, and some people are shifting back from the cloud. And I don't have my shirt on that says the cloud is just somebody else's computer. But really,
Yeah.
it's that shift coming back that, okay, well, we need to get involved with the business. And that's
Right.
really where I think it's moving from not just an IT consultant, the really true good MSPs get involved with the business. I remember we did QBRs and planned. I was talking with one of our partners, and I'm like, "Do you do QBRs?" And I'm like, "How long do you talk about what you did and fixed?" And they're like, "The whole thing." I go run through their tickets. I'm like, "That's ridiculous. You need to
Right.
go.
Right.
You need to go. We did 150 tickets this month or this quarter. All of these things were resolved. Everything's working, and that's how you know we're doing a good job. Now, what are we going to work on next quarter? What are we going
Yeah.
to work on quarter two, quarter three, quarter four? This is the roadmap you plan out for the year. These projects are coming in, and you need to be, we've said this, and everybody makes this comment. You need to be on their side of the table. You need to be their trusted business advisor, which is a bunch of
Yeah.
bullshit. It
Yeah.
really is. It's just it's people saying to do something, but what does that really mean? And when we had managed my IT, I used to jump in and go, well, what is business? What is, it was called Navision at the time. What is Navision? What is NetSuite? Right. And the biggest joke with my business partner was I said, hey, these ERP and CRM things are failing 70% of the time. So as long as we project management, and we don't have to hire the developers, we don't have to know the product, just keep them to the timeline and the budget and do a change management process. And we fail 60% of the time, we're still better than everybody else. And we
Yeah. And
laughed about it.
yeah, I mean, and connecting the dots too. I mean, you started saying we don't have to know everything, and that's 100% true because, it's not about, well, I mean, let's go to the good old saying of, it's not what you know, but who you know.
Mhm.
My feeling is it's not what you know, but how you know to figure it out, how to resolve it. That's what makes the difference. And we can go into any business environment, and we've all had prospects that say, well, but are you specialized in this application? Or do you have other dentists or CPAs that you work with? I think sometimes that's a feel good for them. But in reality, if we're good at what we do, it doesn't matter what you do. You could make purple widgets. You
Mhm.
could, and you're the only purple widget company that we work with. As long as we can quickly identify the issue when we're talking about, more reactionary type, things. If we can identify what the issue is and we can figure out what steps need to be taken in a quick manner, that's what matters. And then from a proactive perspective, we take a look at what are some of the common things that could happen in your environment and what can we do to make sure that these don't happen, mitigate those. We can never eliminate them because, IT is black and white. There's many shades of gray in between, and there is no magic wand. I mean, I say this a lot. It's more the crystal ball approach to managing IT than the magic 8 ball. At least with that crystal ball, you can, with all the tools we have, we can see into their environment, identify where there, potential for error, because a small issue that we identify today, if left untouched, can grow into a big issue. They may not notice that small issue. We can see it, but if left untouched, it's going to snowball into something that is going to impact them. And our job is to find that and eliminate it and help them avoid there being any kind of downtime or disruption.
Absolutely. And I think some of the biggest issue, I remember, do you have anybody, I'm going back into the relic days, right? I remember
Yeah.
people saying, do you have anybody this? I'm like, no, that's not my job. My job is to know your IT system, and I do multiple different IT systems, and I'll be able to bring from those other companies I work with things you're not even thinking about, things that you
Right.
may not realize you need yet. And that I use that, turn that negative into strength. I remember sitting there one time, I was reading a QuickBooks. Remember when you had manuals, not on paper, but actual manuals?
Right.
I was reading I think it was QuickBooks manual, and I don't know accounting systems, right? Like I'm reading up on how to do something, and the CEO walked into the break room. I was reading at it, and he goes, "I hope I'm not paying you to read the manual." And I pushed it to him, and I go, "Well, then you read it."
Right. Right.
And that was not in my own company. That was an in-house. And our CEO got a call. He could not stop laughing. He's like, I can't believe you just did that. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Like, you either pay me to read it or you read it. That's literally how you
Right.
run a business. So,
Yeah.
and the guy laughed. He thought it was great. He became one of our clients for the longest time, and it was great. He loved it. He's like, nobody's ever said that to me. I'm like, I'm not an expert on everything. I'm
Right.
an expert in technology. And when
Yeah.
I can do that, then you could do that. And if MSPs is that relic side, bringing that back into it is important. Like right now,
Technology and vodka.
technology
Right.
and vodka. That's the only thing. It's great if how many people do you going back to like remembering birthdays and like I used to bring in all kinds of stuff. I'm like, hey, I heard you got a big promotion, Janet. Here's this. And being involved in those businesses, and more importantly, to scale, training your team to do that.
Right.
Because it's really important that there's only one Steve, there's only one Jay, thank God. Right.
Right.
There's only two, there's only one each.
Yeah.
But in reality, teaching your team that culture and that culture going forward, that's how you grow it. Because technology is a commodity. And I really hate to say it, but it is.
Yep.
And there's always somebody going to come in and go, I'll manage that desktop $4 cheaper, or I'll manage this server or this part of your business for $10 less. And if you're always fighting on price, you're going to lose. And that's really where that relationship matters. And
And
that's
you want them to think, you know what? Sure, this other company could save us $4 per endpoint or whatever,
Mhm.
but they're not Steve, they're not Mike, they're not Jay, they're not Norm.
Yeah.
And that is what they're buying. And that's why it's so critical that um I've always felt that they get the full view of our entire organization, not just maybe a tech that's assigned to them, because and that's the challenge is, if that tech that's assigned to them is the face of the company and that's all that they know, then maybe that tech leaves and then they're like, oh great, I've got this void. And
Yeah.
you want them to get to have an experience that they're working with you as your organization, not the individual person that they're in front of. And
I used
you
to
want to
swap them
build
out.
many. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
used to swap them out every quarter. I'd swap out in a new person, and I'd always get like that couple week, that first week of, oh, wow, we don't want that person. But as the
Right.
rotation happened, they eventually go, oh, I can't wait till quarter 3 when Mike Davis is there, because Mike is really good and he knows this. We're going to start that project when Mike's there. So it becomes,
Yeah.
again, turning that weakness into a strength, right? And
Right.
getting that piece to go, all right, no one tech is going to control my company. That's my job. Right.
Right.
And kind of working through those. I will tell you. So I was on the ASCII in Costa Mesa. I was on with Microsoft and I did a panel. And one of the cool thing about ASCII Costa Mesa was that was my old Microsoft rep. So
Okay.
I'm up there and we're kind of talking about the same things. How do you change? They had a panel on how do you change the strategy from a vendor to a strategic partner, right? And I was talking about the MSP and I'm like, Microsoft's got a ton of MDF funds and it's a bunch of hoops to get through them and you've got to work through them. But is anybody doing lunch and learns with their clients and with new clients? And not a hand went up. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, there's a Copilot is out. This is out. There's so many new technologies that they're already looking at it. You need to be ahead of it. Buy them lunch. And
Right.
Microsoft will pay for it. And I go, I'm going to spend his money right now. He was laughing his head off. He's like, Steve used to grab all of my NDF funds for all of Orange County because I learned the game, right? And I just, there's this stagnant, it's almost like, here's where I get myself in trouble, and we're really going to go into the real Steve. It's almost like there's this stagnant moment with MSPs right now where they're just like, Copilot's coming. I don't know what to do. This is coming. I don't know what to do. These guys are beating up. It's get back, get excited, jump out there, do some lunches, right? We did a big thing for a bunch of our partners in Phoenix where we went out and nailed a spring training piece and then just took them out drinking. And that was legit business partners. So that become not just the channel side, that was for more of the MSP side. It becomes more fun, right? Like having that relationship. Last my team called me Monday to say that they had drinks at 8:30 in the morning. That's the first couple of meetings. It might be a little off. And I'm like, okay, things we don't say in Teams, that this should be either a text or a call. Number one. Number two, why? And they go, because one of our partners, this axe throwing place, was going to be on the news and they needed people to be there 8:30 in the morning. And so we all ran over there and I go, so you didn't drink cranberry with soda water, you drank cranberry with vodka. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's your choice.
But you were on the news.
But you're on the news, right? So I'm like, who's going to complain? But that's the relationship you need with your partners like that. How do you manage that? And I soapbox on that. Get excited. Get involved with your partners and what they're doing, and be involved with that. Right.
And complacency kills. Complacency kills. Complacency kills. And it is so easy for us to become complacent in what we're doing, especially the longer that we're doing what we do. We get into that mindset of, it's the same old, same old. We really got to dig deep, find that passion, and get our team excited about things. We got to go back to our roots of, what got us to where we are today. And it wasn't being complacent. It was doing different things, being excited about the things we're doing. And I mean, taking advantage of going to, different local events, getting, like the Lenovo days, and I don't know if they're still doing this, where they, they ship you out the demo boxes and, the big red cases where you got, 5 different laptops that you can go out to your clients and do demos. I mean, do all those little things, because I think sometimes we feel because others don't do somersaults when we do things like that, that they don't care. But that's not true. We all know people only complain, or tell us about things that they want to complain about. They don't tell us about things that are great. It's just how people are wired. And, just go back to the roots. Don't lose sight of that. And also look for new things, because we can't do the same things over and over. We got to look for new, fresh things. And that's why going to conferences, listening to, others, like, our discussions on, during WTF or our MSP discussion groups, speaking with vendors like yourself that have been in the industry. I mean, you've been in the industry for so long, you've seen things, but you also, as a vendor, you are seeing at conferences all week long, you're seeing what different MSPs are doing. And, so striking up a conversation with the vendor and just chat. I mean, you don't have to have an agenda, just chat, you know,
Yeah.
you know,
We
let the direct.
we like to take people out to dinner. I don't know if you know this. I got a budget.
Yeah, right,
And
right.
I like good food. So we're
Yep.
not going to go to McDonald's. Like tonight,
Right.
we're taking.
Whatever budget you got, it ain't as big as Rob Ray's.
Right. Rob.
Right. Hey, I'm going to call ice on him. We'll be fine. I'll get Rob out of here. He's
Oh.
Canadian.
There you go.
No,
Oh,
we are a smaller vendor, but for one dinner, I will splurge. We're going to Fleming's tonight with 20 people. So, which is a great steakhouse. One guy came up to me, he's like, I've never been to Fleming's. What do I order? And I'm like, steak. And Lynn from ASCII went up to him. She goes, stop eating Fleming's. It's so good. I wish I was going with you guys. So you want to have like that kind of piece. So, but when we go, we're not pitching. I'm not going to talk to
right.
you about what we're doing. I'm going to talk to you about you. What are you doing? And I think that's also missing on the vendor side in some of this. Some of these guys just pitch, pitch, pitch. I'm like, dude, who cares? The relationship
Yeah.
is what gets you. Jay
Well,
and I have a great relationship, right? And he can joke with me and I can joke with him. And Jay,
yeah.
we're partners as well. So it, it getting involved. I was a Shriner. I
Were
literally
you?
remember, oh yeah. Oh, I got involved with everything. I remember walking in, and I don't, if you can't say I have tattoos, I remember
Yeah.
walking in and these very conservative, like dentists and peace. And I'm like rolling in, hey guys, earring out. And
Wearing
they're
a
like,
fez.
oh, yeah, I was wearing the whole fence. And they're like, what?
Right.
Like their faces. And I literally looked at one guy who was staring at me like I just farted in church. And I looked at him and I know. Nobody told me these tattoos were permanent. And I just
Right.
walked away and everybody died laughing. And
Yeah.
he's like, that was the best response I ever had from anybody. And I'm like, I got a lot of tattoos. It's cool. It doesn't change anything. And I can clean up if I want to. Like not this, but like at least cover these.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then grabbing, what was that? I think Jay, I think you and I were joking about this story once. I had Ryan Westinghouse, who owns West Coast Customs, throw a chair at me because his IT wasn't working. So
Oh, nice.
until you could get that level, like he literally picked up a chair, it went across, I batted it away, and I went to grab it and throw it back at him. But going with who you know, and if you gather the right partners, then it doesn't feel like you're working. It doesn't feel like, from an MSP perspective, it feels like you're working with friends. And you'll
Yeah.
always do the right thing. And I think that's what's missing a lot too. Is like, oh, I got to grow the right way. I never believed in having a vertical. I thought that was stupid. I
Yeah.
remember everybody going, what's your vertical? I'm like, I don't, what is a vertical? Why would I stick myself in one business? What if that business tanks? Right. Like
Yeah.
I want to go over this way. I want to be this. I want to be that. And then some people have radiuses. I remember in SIT, we wouldn't take a client if it was outside of 25 miles
Mm.
radius.
Yep.
And I kept yelling about it. It was brilliant. I mean, they had 200 or 300 clients. Like we had big partners, and talking about endpoints. But yeah, I don't believe any of that. I have partners. I'm the only guy who put a Datto box in China.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Did you
awesome.
physically,
Quarter shut him off. What?
did you physically fly there and install it?
Maybe I'm not gonna talk about how I smuggled the West into China on YouTube.
Right. Yeah. True.
Was
True.
that the
True.
data that was backing up the Clinton email server?
Nope, that was not. Nope, I had nothing to do with that. I know that guy. And like, think
Yeah.
about that. He got nailed. Is he still in the channel?
He,
I
he
think
uh he did move to an MSP, and then
yeah.
last he mentioned to me, he I just saw him in the last year or so. He is doing consulting now. And but his story is truly amazing. I mean, the death
Yeah.
threats that they went
Yeah.
through, how they had to get their employees' names off of the internet to try to scrub that just because, they had people outside their homes, and yeah, I mean his story is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and not to bring that down, but yeah, no, it is. It was, and not gonna dead name anybody right now. Is that the term?
Right.
I'm not PC, so
Yeah. 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 But I
but
want to
yeah,
go back to one thing you said, as far as what we feel about what we do, and I've had a tech tell me in the past, still works for me. He says, Dan, I hope you don't take offense to this, but I don't even feel like this is work. And I'm like, I love it. That's
yeah,
what we
yeah,
want,
yeah.
right? He comes in and it's like playtime for him, in a serious way. But
Yeah.
it's like playtime because he enjoys what he does, and the customers love what he does to help them.
Because that
And
energy comes out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Mike, were you gonna jump in?
Yeah. So I was wondering, were you going to get to a spot where you wanted to take questions, or did you want to
Go
take
for
them
it.
as we go?
Go for
Let's
it.
go
So
for
I'm
it.
Yeah.
kind of wondering, like, so you had experience as an MSP, then you're out doing sales stuff. Now you're starting up an MSP. So are you the owner of the new MSP?
Yeah.
Okay. So since you have all that experience, like I started my MSP as a one-man band, and I did everything, but I had read the E-Myth Revisited, and
Mhm.
so I knew about processes and creating processes, and so I was building documentation out before I had anyone to document it too. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
Where you're at, are you starting out and you're going to try to hire a few employees out of the gate so that if you get some sales, they've got something to do, and like, or are you starting out just yourself till you land a client and then hiring, and
So
like what's your plan?
I'm cheating, Mike. So and Dan knows this, and Jay knows this. I also belong to a early stage investment group. So we have about 36 companies. I'm building MSP at those 36 companies first. So I'm gonna have that. So we do have employees. Then I'm gonna branch out from there. So uh, uh,
So
I'm
you already have your
springboard.
clients kind
Our
of
kind of, yeah. The good news is
place.
I can't fire them, and they can't fire me. But that's also bad news. So
Right.
so it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the greatest. So we're building that way in order to do that. And then around Q3, Q4, I'm going to branch out. So I get to cheat a little bit. When I did manage my IT, I did it exactly the way you're doing it. And I'm all about, the funny thing is you're talking about introverted extroverts. I actually get recharged by myself. That I have to expel so much energy when we're out that like I'm energy drinking Celsiuses and going boom, boom, boom. But then I get home and I am a homebody reading books. I don't want anything to do with anybody. I want my dog and that's it. So I bringing that piece of it out, I've got to go out. I'm doing Arizona Tech Council. We're doing the Phoenix Business Journal, all the same stuff in order to get that name out there. Does that make sense, Mike? Does that answer
Yeah,
where you're going with that?
yeah.
So, yeah, I have a springboard, so I get to start at this level, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have to do the same things we're talking about. I have to go out and, in order to get the name out there, I've got to go out. I get to start at a bigger level, right? And trust me, that's not necessarily going to be a good thing. So, and I mean, taking the stack and doing the processes and really starting from scratch. Grabbing the PSA, the RMM.
So now, so since you know so many people in the industry, do you mind like, excuse me, sharing what the process for picking the PSA and that
mhm.
stuff is? Because you already have an idea of your size. And my first thing when people are asking about a PSA is like, where are you now and where do you want to go? Because it's really difficult to switch PSAs. So
Mhm.
you might want to upsize now to avoid having the pain later of switching.
Right.
So
So, a,
what
p- a
what did you pick, or
s-
have you made your
well, I'll
selection?
go. Yeah, yeah, we did, and you said the process. So absolutely talk about the process. I looked at a PSA. I didn't care if it was ConnectWise. Arnie Bellini installed my ConnectWise server in 19 or 1880, right? No. So So I'm like, I don't care about that. Kaseya, Chad Nifke, I'm bringing names back from the past. Dan's going to laugh. Chad and I worked at in-house IT. He was the product manager for Kaseya. I fully think there's a guy named Hugo, and I built half the scripts that became Kaseya's roadmap 20 years ago. So I didn't care about any of that. So PSA, RMM, did not care about who it is, didn't care about who I knew. I said, I need a process that makes our business work. And I want to keep as many humans out of that process as possible. I want it very simple, and we want to have a business thread. This is what a ticket should look like. So I built the process, kind of like what you were saying. I built the processes out, and I go, all right, now let's look at all the tools and which one fits. For us, super ops fit. So we use super ops. I didn't care about multi-tenant, not to plug them, but I'm talking as an MSP, not as a vendor.
Right.
Super ops fit us there. Then I'm like, all right, what's our backup? Did the same exact process. How are we going to do the backup? And we chose Wasabi. I'm not just dropping, like, I'm sorry, like it's dropping these pieces.
Oh,
And
you're good.
then we wanted to do security, and I'm working with Total on that. So I've got 2 or 3 different partners I'm looking on the security side of it. But I wanted, everybody jokes about single pane of glass, like, oh, your PSA should be your single pane of glass. None of them are, and they're full of crap, right? So you're like, all right, well, which one can I get to what I need to faster? Does that make sense? Does that answer it,
Oh,
Mike? So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
that's kind of the way it
Yeah.
went. If I hear the word single pane of glass again, I'm gonna just
Yeah. Or even,
it's never
even
changed. That was
integration
10 years
is
ago. Yeah, integration.
that I've been through some stuff with my billing and invoicing process with ConnectWise, and their overuse of the word integration is killing me because
Overuse. We use
it's just
QuickBooks.
terrible.
I'm still
Yeah,
on
and
QuickBooks. I'm about
I'm
to go to Business Central, but I'm on QuickBooks. So
yeah,
yeah.
I'm on QuickBooks, and ConnectWise would tell you they have a native integration.
Mm-hmm.
If it's native and it's integrated, why do I have a separate login, a separate site to go to, and nothing talks unless you press buttons?
Yeah.
It's like,
So my native integration with QuickBooks is named Bianca. She's our controller.
yeah,
There you go.
yep.
But yeah, no, I the same kind of process. How did it fit? I think our choices were, and I did it on the tech and the business process is really what I cared about. The tech, and RMMs and RMM. I think they're good pieces of it. You're still going to have the same basic pieces, but I really wanted what I thought would make sense for us, and
So
that's
for
kind of
the
where I'm
on
at.
the people side of it, you already have some people smattered about through the company that, okay, so you've got some people to start. So
I have me. I have my guru of operations named TJ, who Jay has met. And I've got a great guy. He's an up and coming tech. I think he's going to be a name amazing. His name is Stephen Copeland. No relation.
Number
Interesting.
3.
Number 3.
Interesting.
Jay's actually met number 1, 2, and 3. We're all named the same. So I grabbed my son, and then and then I have another one as well. Another my ex stepson. We called him the red haired stepchild because he's ginger, and we have him on there too. So it's a starting it. Doesn't matter what you have. If you start it the way you did, when I started managing my IT, they almost shut off my power.
Hmm.
I was broke, destitute. I was just, how the hell am I going to do this? Like, where are we going to get? I'm borrowing money from my dad, who Jay has actually met, which is not an easy process because he's an Irish guy from Philly. So I'm like, hey, gonna borrow a little cash. What do you need it for? I'm like, cool. So I did it, but so now that I'm at that level, I want to start it the same way. Does that make sense? Like I
oh,
wanted that same
absolutely.
boost
Yeah.
because
Well,
it
you've
doesn't
learned so
work.
many lessons from being
Yeah.
in the business. I just there was a guy that lost his IT job, and he pops into Discord and wants to know about starting his own MSP. And a bunch of us are like, wait a second, you're broke because you lost your job? No, do
Hmm.
not do this, because
Right.
most
It's
businesses,
hard.
even outside of MSPs, fail not because they don't have a good product or a good service, but because they run out of cash in the short term.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Yeah.
there's that
Yeah.
low barrier to entry. I mean, we all know that everybody thinks that, you can just start an MSP and laugh your way to the bank, but they forgot that there's, you got marketing, you've got operations, you've got HR, you've got all these different business functions that are critical into making the business happen. And none of it is easy. I mean, it's,
There,
you
you know,
I mean, how many
there
times have we
are,
had, um, like texts come in for interviews that, oh, I tried starting an MSP, but I just couldn't make it happen. And then they're looking for a job. So go ahead, Mike.
I wouldn't
yeah,
hire one of those. Sorry, go ahead, Mike. I'm
No,
like, nope.
no,
yeah. I mean, it is, and on one hand, there is a low barrier to entry because you don't need a license. You can just call yourself an MSP. I
right.
agree with you there. On the other hand, like getting stuff in place like an HP partnership or resale authorization through distributors and stuff, like now that's harder than it was 10 years ago.
Your
And
tax
so,
ID, all the stuff. Yeah.
yeah, all that stuff. And then just the scale, like if you're starting out and you're trying to look at PSAs, um, or RMMs, they may say, okay, we have a 250 endpoint minimum. So if you're really small and that minimum $500 a month is going to break you,
Right.
then you don't have the options as everybody else.
And don't
So,
forget, if you go to Kaseya for it, a 3-year contract as well.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Well,
we,
and ConnectWise too. ConnectWise does. Listen, I'm gonna go with both of them. They both are a 3-year contract, right? So it's
but
the
in
norm.
reality, you can do a 1 year term with all of them. You're just going to pay more,
Yeah,
and,
you
but
can even go
I
month
think
to month. I think.
we need more barriers to entry in our business. I mean, too many people, they're thinking that they can become an MSP and don't realize the responsibility that is attached to that. It's like having a child. I mean, anybody can have a child. There is no manual, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna, be
Be
successful
good
at
at
raising a
it.
child,
Yeah.
right? You know, and
Yeah, I kind of want to go on something that Mike was saying to Dan, just to tag on to you, right?
yeah,
When I left in-house IT, what happened was there was a CIO that came in and said he was going to push out virtual desktops to every one of our clients, and we're going to get rid of PCs.
Hmm.
And I said, "You're a freaking idiot. That's not going to work." And this is in 2010, by the way,
yeah,
right? And he's like, "It's not going to work. It's not going to be there." Well, it works at banks. I'm like, there's a reason it works at banks and why they have to do it that way. There's a whole, and like, we head to head like this. And so I said to the CEO, never challenge your boss like this. I said, it's either him or me. So the next day I was getting my severance package. So I got fired for the first time in my life, besides my
yeah.
father. I was like, what the hell? Years later, that person came back to me and his wife goes, um, tell him at this point, how good, tell him what he should have did. And that person came back to me and said, I should have fired the other guy. But when I left, in-house, I opened my new MSP without stealing a client. And I made that purposely my mission that I would not take one of their clients. In fact, if they called me, I would call up that company and I would go, here's your problems, you need to fix it, but I will not be the one to take them.
Yeah.
And that was my own integrity. There's no certificate for it. The biggest problem is that's not how people start MSPs. That's why it was so much harder, right? So sorry, I got Leonard right behind me when I'm on a piece, but
A nerd,
everybody just yelled Leonard, you live
a
on YouTube.
nerd,
There you go. There you go. He's coming. Yeah, there he
a
goes.
brother.
Dan says hi. So the biggest piece was making sure that we could survive on our own. Because a lot of people that start MSPs and not faulting anybody for it, they'll take 5, 6 clients and go away. Well, then how do you get another 10? What's your process to get that piece? And I think that's why when you said I hired people that are MSPs, I'm like, I wouldn't hire one of those techs. I'm like, nope, I failed. I'm like, nope, because you're going to do the same thing again. You're going to think you learned that lesson. You're going to take 5 of my worst clients that you did the best with, and you think you know how to do it, and then they're going to come back to me when you fail.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly it's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to everybody on this call. And they're like, okay, yeah, well, we will. It didn't really work out with Bob. Well, yeah, because I fired Bob. There's a
Right.
reason it didn't work out.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so. All right. Did we
Uh,
get something in the chat? What do you, oh,
Just
I think it
Norm's
was
comment.
oh, Norm.
Norm thinks that you're at a circus. I guess maybe
I
he
think
saw
that
some,
comment came in when he was talking about the virtual desktops.
Oh,
he saw like
I remember that era, and
elephant in the
I
draft
started
back.
to go down that path, but I did it with the numbers behind it,
ooh.
and I did it for a training room.
See, that'll work. But
Yeah.
like for your actual desktop, and that was Citrix was pushing that hard in like
They
2010,
they were
11.
well VMware. It was VMware View at the time, and then it became VMware Horizon. And my case worked because I had 12 computers in a training room, and I did
That
0
works.
clients. Yeah, and we were able to do training, and the apps that they needed for the class were all loaded and working. And then they could also remote back to their desktop, which I was working for architects and engineers, so they had CAD rigs, and they could. And the reason I did it was I listened to VMware, and VMware said at the time, "Hey, if you want to do CAD on these things, we're not there yet. But if you just start running Office, we're there. You can get this into your environment, get going on it, gain some experience with it, and then when we figure out how to cool GPUs in a rack, then the day may come where it'll make sense to virtualize CAD." And I was looking forward to that because I could put a $6,000 CAD rig in front of somebody, and they could make that thing work when they were doing renderings. Like it was chugging full steam. But that was only maybe a half hour out of 40 hours in their week that the machine was working like that. All the rest of the time they're like reading email and doing other stuff in 2D and stuff. And I was like, yeah, look at all that CPU and GPU time just being wasted. And so if we could virtualize that, that would save a ton of money. So yeah,
I think it has its use cases. I just think they pushed it for everything. Not everything.
they did.
I'm gonna blow
They did.
everybody's mind as a vendor. My job is to sell you my product. And sometimes a lot of vendors are full of shit.
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes, Josh. But they're not there to, they're going to tell you, listen, this is the sliced bread, even with my product, right? It doesn't fit everything.
Just yesterday,
Jay is a
Verizon
perfect
called.
example. Yeah. Yeah.
Just yesterday, Verizon called, and I said, no, I won't consider you because in our area, the support is absolutely terrible. And I've burned up thousands of dollars trying to work with your terrible support. Every single time I tell the new rep of the day that calls that, they're like, oh, we've made improvements.
Yeah.
No, you haven't. But it's in their script. They read it the same way every time. It's in their script.
So I will sometimes our solution, just as a vendor, does not fit. Sometimes it doesn't. But the problem is if you drink the Kool-Aid and run down a certain road, I'm not going to say names, this road or that road, sometimes it doesn't fit. And I wish vendors were a lot more honest about it. Jay and I had one that didn't fit. Sometimes it doesn't work. And you know what? That's okay. It's how I treat Jay, how Jay treats me, and how we work together that makes sense. And we did it. We worked it out. Everything's fine. We can still be friends. That's you do, if you keep your business that way, if you keep your integrity that way, I think it's important. And that's the same way you need to be with all your clients from an MSP side. Sometimes it doesn't fit.
Yeah, and
it's okay.
Why don't you bring that up, Steve? Because I was actually on a call 11 o'clock today with a client, and I might have another one that will fit.
There you go. Good.
Nice.
So those kind of things are the way that's the way you work. If you can, and I really believe in doing that, and my teams. We talked about your team and how you keep your team motivated and how you keep yourself motivated. My favorite time is one-on-one week. We do it once a quarter. I go one-on-one with all everywhere. So, RYTHMz only has this many employees, but there's multiple other companies, right? So I go and have one-on-ones. My favorite question to ask is, and I get them every time, and I've had people come up to me. We end our PM calls, our project management calls with, does anybody have any answers? Instead of, does anybody have any questions? Right? There's one of my, I'll throw that one out there. I love that because you'll get answers. Steve, if we did this in this project, it makes more sense. Oh, okay. Let's do that. But my favorite thing is at the end of this, I learned this from my boss, who's a great guy, Jeff Mahoney. Quick shout out. I ask him, are you happy? Why are you happy? And it's and the answers I get back are blah, or this, and sometimes it's no. And I'm like, well, why aren't you happy? Well, this, and this. And I've started doing that with our partners because I like it so much. Are you happy? Well, and I just drop it. And they're like, what, like your service or your thing? Or like everything. Like I was on for an hour with one of our partners talking about his dog. I'm like, he had to put his dog down. And I just recently had to too. And so we had this moment of just talking about it. He's like, you really just took time out to do that. And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't you? We're all humans. And if we keep that and do that with our clients, those favorite things, are you happy? Like, what do you have answers for me? What can I do better? Right? Those kind of things as an MSP really make the difference. And teaching your team to do that and literally just doing that. If you're not having one-on-ones with your team once a quarter, you should be having one-on-ones with your team once a quarter. If you're not having one-on-ones with your clients once a quarter, you should be having one-on-ones. So like I literally have these planned out in weeks. So I go, all right, I know this week is no travel. I can't do it. I have to be here because this is what we're going to do. And really kind of good.
Those one-on-ones, whether whatever the cadence is, whether it's quarterly or a couple times a year, once a year, schedule them in advance at the beginning of the year. Get them all booked up. Don't say, well, we'll get them scheduled. No, get them booked up right away, because once they're on the calendar, they're on the calendar and you're done. You plan for it. And then the clients, have it to look forward to and expected. It's not just a hypothetical thing that, hey, yeah, we'll meet with you on a regular basis. And then it never happens. So I love that.
And then I didn't leave the channel and come back in because I wrote a book and I'm hawking the book.
Right.
So I'm coming back in and I'm like, you know what? It would be really cool. I'm just going to try it again. I had a great, who was I having a conversation with? I'm not going to name names, but they were like, I read this book. The guy wrote it 15 years ago. And I was like, do you think anything's changed?
Right. Yeah.
I sold one of the reasons we're doing it, we need to, we need to do it, right? So, but the other reason is I sold my MSP in 2013. I don't know what you guys are going through anymore. So I have the opportunity to build MSP, so I'm going to do it. And then now I'm going to know. And I'm not going to write a book about it. I'm not going to do anything. This is not an ego trip for Steve Copeland, right? In fact, I got asked about all of the events on Monday, and literally we check ourselves. How much of this is ego? And I'm like, it was 20%. Now it's down to 10. And they're like, okay. I'm like, I don't want to be on the road in 2026. I go, I'll do a couple events, but I'm not doing them like we're doing this year. And but yeah, how much of that is ego? It's good questions as well. I love, like, to me, like I literally am trying to avoid my logo in the back the whole time, right?
Completely go for it. I'd like you to give a quick, so I got to admit, every time I see the RYTHMz logo, the song "Rhythms of the Night" plays through my head. And you guys should have that jamming in the background.
So it's funny. So I have a very fun team. If you would think like hanging out with me is fun, working with me is also fun. They have a RYTHMz playlist in the office with like RYTHMz is a dancer, Rhythms of the Night. They have like this whole thing that they're doing this whole piece, and it's hilarious because I walk in the office, they do it, and they're like, "Why don't you use this when you go on stage?"
Right.
And I'm like, why would you? Right. And they're like, you should. So maybe you may see that come up pretty soon because
Well,
I may
I
have
was
gotten
trying to look
convinced.
up on YouTube the Rhythms of the Night video, and I realized that besides Rhythms of the Night, there's also Rhythm of the Night, which is by
Yeah.
DeBarge, who
Yep.
is from they're from Grand Rapids. And I remember this, really dating myself here, but I remember being in grade school and at the Plainfield Skating Center, and DeBarge was there hanging out, and as a grade schooler, seeing DeBarge, it was like the coolest thing, man. I mean,
Oh
and
yeah.
now people are like, who,
Who?
but
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I'll give you so not I lived in California and there's Knott's Berry Farm, which is like the knockoff Disneyland. Actually, it was before Disney, by the way. But I saw Depeche Mode play there
mm,
in front of like
gotta
400 people. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, if you can't tell, I was dressed in black. I didn't have a lot of color back then. I had two colors, black and the other black.
right,
So yeah, I was that kid, which is not popular anymore. I would not suggest doing it.
yeah.
So,
Well,
what
hey,
other questions? Are we done? Okay, cool.
we're at 105. I want to, just make sure, we got work to do, right? We got
Yeah.
fires to put out, Um, so real quick though, give us your, 30 to 60-second elevator pitch about rhythm. So for anybody that's not familiar.
Go to rhythms.com, call Jay. Jay will tell you about it. No, it's internet in a box, 5G. I don't really
Yeah.
want to pitch. When we talked about this, I wanted to come on and talk like an MSP. I'm really
Yep.
not into the pitch. It's rhythms.com. I spelled it wrong because I was drunk.
Rhythms with a Z, with a
With a Z. Yeah. So, yeah.
All
So
right.
that's it.
Hey, I greatly appreciate your time. I know you got a busy schedule being down there in Orlando, getting your booth set up. And is it been pretty busy down there?
It is. I think there's 100 or so here. 100 people or so. It's fun. I love the ask. I love events. I love your community too, Dan. So like, I love the community aspect of this. Yeah, your community is great. We have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I like to come in, if you guys aren't in the Facebook group, I like to come in and post memes and drop back out.
There you go.
But from that, I had to warn, I think I think it was because we did that podcast, Dan. I got a bunch of friend requests. Jay's been on my Facebook for a long time. I literally put up, guys, this is not my professional Facebook. This
Yeah.
is my personal, and
Oh.
I make jokes.
I saw you do that. That you just did that in the last week. That was
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
I was like, guys, this is not LinkedIn. This is all about me talking smack and my friends talking smack to me. You're welcome to, but I'm going to tell you, this is not a professional area. So
Exactly. Well, I'm going to throw into chat a link to your LinkedIn. But with that being said, we are good to go for the day. Remember, tomorrow we have elevator pitch. Friday, tomorrow it's elevator pitch at 2 p.m. Eastern time. You can check that out on the website. And then, of course, Friday is our MSP discussion group. But with that being said, Steve, thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it.
thank you guys. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
See you tomorrow, Steve.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Have a good one,
Take it
guys.
easy,
All right.
boys.
Here.
All right. Bye.